Hello, and thank you for joining me on this short food law update. It's Monday the 10th of June 2024, and today's topic is about the product recall that has been issued with respect to the Real Wrap company, which I believe is in Bristol. Now, the product recall has been issued by the Food Standards Agency, and I've put full details below this video so you can actually read all the facts of the case, but I thought it might be helpful just to explain what's going on here in terms of law. Now, the product recall information notice that I've referred to just then, which is below this video, has been issued by the Food Standards Agency on a whole range of products produced by the Real Wrap company. And the issue of concern here is Listeria monocytogenes contamination. Now, just to remind you, Listeria monocytogenes is a food poisoning bacteria that can cause food poisoning. I mean, most people, the symptoms are no more than perhaps flu, but in some vulnerable people, it can be very serious infection and can lead to, in more extreme cases, sort of meningitis. However, there are some issues with the bacteria, Listeria monocytogenes, that are very relevant to the food industry. One of them is that Listeria monocytogenes can grow at refrigerated temperatures, which makes it very difficult to control. The key control factors for preventing Listeria monocytogenes getting into food are having, effective hygiene conditions in the place of manufacture or distribution, whatever, having proper monitoring to ensure, if you've got something like a sandwich manufacturer, which are particularly prone to Listeria contamination, having adequate monitoring, but not just monitoring, preventative measures such as physical separation between raw foods and ready-to-eat foods, making sure that things like condensate from pipes can't drip into foods, making sure that environmental contamination of the foods is prevented at every opportunity. If you want to know a bit more about controlling Listeria, I've actually recorded a very short video on this topic, and again, the link to that is just below this video. So, in this situation, I don't know the facts behind the case, so I'm going to talk generally about product recall. Product recall can occur when the Food Standards Agency is made aware of a food which may present a food safety issue. Now, there is a legal obligation on food business operators if they become aware that their food, once it's left the initial control of their food business, fails food safety requirements. So, for example, if I was a sandwich manufacturer and I became aware that my sandwiches were contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes above a sort of legal tolerance level, then I would be under a legal obligation to notify what's known as the competent authority. Typically, that will be the local environmental health department, or it could be straight to the Food Standards Agency. There is a way of notifying them on their website. However, if I notify my local authority that I have some sandwiches that I believe have Listeria monocytogenes above a particular tolerance level, then the local authority would look at that and they would make a judgment on whether they needed in law to report the matters to the Food Standards Agency. The sort of things the local authority would take into account is this just a one-off and is it localised? If it's just a localised issue, then they may want to just deal with it themselves. But if we're talking about a sandwich manufacturer with national distribution, it becomes a non-localised incident. And because it's a non-localised incident, they must notify the Food Standards Agency that it's occurred. Similarly, for certain food poisoning microorganisms like E. coli, like Listeria, it's actually a serious incident, even if it's not localized, even if it is localized. So the local authority will still need to notify the Food Standards Agency. So under these circumstances, if the manufacturer of the sandwiches became aware through maybe their own systems that there was a problem and they notified under the legal duty the local authority that there was such a problem, the local authority in these circumstances would be required to notify the Food Standards Agency. That would go through to the Food Standards Agency's incidents team. Now, the Food Standards incidents team would perform a risk assessment. They would obviously talk with the parties involved. In this particular case, I don't know the facts, but it's more likely that what would happen to the Food Standards Agency would be discussing both with the Real Wrap company and the local authority who are responsible for enforcing food law in that particular factory. They'll be discussing with them the facts of the case. The Food Standards Incidents team would carry out this risk assessment. They have a number of options. They can issue a product withdrawal information notice. That's basically just saying, look, this is being pulled back from supermarkets or from the supply chains. A product withdrawal is when you're actually taking the product back from the supply chain, but it hasn't actually reached customers. If, however, the evidence was that the food had already reached customers, then the Food Standards Agency can issue a product recall information notice. This is just letting customers know, consumers know, look, there is a problem with this particular food, don't eat it and return it to wherever you bought it from. That's a product recall information notice. However, they could also issue a food alert for action. Now, a food alert for action is a notice that will be issued to all local authorities in the country to advise them to take the action that's specified in the alert. So in those circumstances, the Food Standards Agency could direct that every local authority or specified local authorities visit specified or unspecified premises and actually do something about it. So that the food alert for action is going to be one of the more significant responses, probably more of an emergency sort of situation. So in this case, we have the actual notice that's been issued is a product recall information notice, a PRIN. That's telling me that the product has gone to the consumer. It's telling me that no actual there's no requirement for local authorities around the country to do anything about it, but they're advising customers to bring it back. In the meantime, no doubt the Food Standards Agency and the local authority will be working with the company to make sure that all the product is accounted for and, of course, to investigate the cause of the incident in the first place, to find out how did Listeria get into those products and also to ensure that that's not repeated in the future. If you want to read a bit more about the topic, then just look at the links below this video. Thank you for watching. Cheers.